Hello and welcome to the Network Plus certification course. I'm your instructor, Jason Blinn. In today's module, we'll be looking at the OSI model. The OSI model, or Open Systems Interconnection model, is a framework by which all computers and network devices communicate with one another. It was developed in the 1980s by an organization called the ISO, or International Organization for Standards. This is a communications model, but it's also a very practical thing that we'll use every day in our careers as IT professionals. The OSI model is divided into 7 layers, each with its own function and purpose. The 7 layers are the application, presentation, session, transport, network, data link, and physical layers. We'll take a look at what each of these does and the function it performs. As a helpful hint for your certification test, there's a mnemonic that can help you remember each of the layers of the OSI model. And it's listed on the slide there. And it's all people seem to need data processing, something that you can use when you're going to take your certification test to help you remember the different layers of the OSI model. Before we dive right into all the different layers of the OSI model, I wanted to show you a quick graphic of the different layers and how they communicate with one another. You can see there by the graphic that communication is transmitted through each of the layers on both the sender and receiver side. On the sender side, at the application layer, the transmission is initiated, goes all the way down to the physical layer medium, goes over to the receiving end, and goes all the way back up the 7 layers until it reaches the application layer on the receiving end computer. The first layer, layer 1, is the physical layer. Now its main function is to provide the physical connectivity between two different devices on a network. It is the copper, fiber, and wireless signals that are used to transmit data back and forth. It's the actual physical medium that you can go and touch and carries the data between the two computers. The next layer, layer 2, is the data link layer. The purpose here is to provide the interface between the logical addressing, which we'll take a look at next, and the physical addressing. The physical address, or MAC address, is a hardware assigned address to each network device that helps identify it on the network. Each MAC address is comprised of 12 digits. 6 digits represent the vendor, and the latter 6 digits represent the serial number of the device. And at the data link layer, it's important to note that this is where data is switched, and we see the network devices called switches at this layer. The next layer, layer 3, is the network layer. This is where the routing happens of the data. This is used between computers that are on different networks, so it needs to route from one network to another. And in order to do this, it uses what's called an IP address. You've probably heard that term before, which stands for Internet Protocol Address. And that's used to designate the logical address of the computer on the network. And it's at this layer that the routing decisions happen, and data basically makes decisions about how to route best from one place to another via a variety of different factors. The next layer is the transport layer. This is actually how data is broken up and transported between the sender and receiver, and it manages the flow of the data between the two endpoints and can use a variety of different methods. One method is using a connection-oriented protocol, which means that it sets up a connection with the receiver and then transmits the data. The second option is a connection-less protocol, which does not set up a session with the endpoint receiver. It just simply transmits the data and has no guarantee of the transmission. It's also at this layer of the OSI model that segmentation happens and the assembly of packets is handled. So when a sender sends a packet or a stream of packets, on the receiving end it's put back together in the proper order. The next layer is the session layer. This session layer basically coordinates the overall communication stream between the two endpoints. It establishes the link between the two points and controls the communication. It will also determine when to send the data, when the line is clear and free to send the next packet, and when to end the session with the other host. The next layer is the presentation layer. Presentation layer is responsible for the encoding and the encryption functions that happen before it gets presented to you as the user of the computer. The last and seventh layer is the application layer. This is where we find the common protocols that we use to communicate with one another, like HTTP for web browsing and things like SMTP, or Simple Mail Transfer Protocol, for mail services across the internet. In this graphic, we see a good representation of the 7 layers of the OSI model and how they work, what functions they perform. So if we start at the top, which is the application layer, we see a person there who's trying to access a Google web page, which is a good common example for the data being transmitted. Person enters the web address in their browser, google.com in this case, and then the process is initiated, and for each packet we'll route all the way through the 7 different layers of the OSI model, from the application layer down to the physical layer, is transmitted to the Google server, who then responds to the request and is all the way up the OSI model on the receiving end, from the physical up to the application layer, responds to the request and comes back down to the physical layer, transmits back to the originating requester, and goes all the way up the 7 layers of the OSI model. I want to thank you for watching this module today, and I hope that's helpful for you, and a good overview of the OSI model will help you prepare for your Network Plus exam. Thank you.